She didn't expect to become the center of a storm that night. One small act of kindness, one decision made in seconds, would turn a quiet diner owner into a national headline. It started when she stepped between a man and the flashing lights that hunted him. To some, he was a criminal. To her, he was a human being who didn't deserve to be beaten down on the asphalt. But helping him meant crossing a line most people wouldn't dare. By sunrise, her diner was surrounded, not by police, but by hundreds of roaring motorcycles. And when those engines fell silent, the world finally saw who she truly was. What made 300 bikers ride for one woman? And why did the police suddenly back off? This is the story of how one act of courage shattered prejudice and changed everything. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from right now? And if stories like this move you, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It helps us share more powerful stories that deserve to be heard. It was just another night at Ruby's Diner, a small, family-run spot on the edge of a quiet southern town. The smell of coffee and fried chicken filled the air, mixing with the soft hum of a jukebox that hadn't stopped playing since the late 90s. Behind the counter stood Alicia Carter, a 42-year-old black woman whose calm presence could make anyone feel at home. She'd opened the diner 5 years earlier, after her husband's passing. It wasn't much, but it was hers, a place where truckers, factory workers, and locals came to grab a bite, share a laugh, and forget about the world outside. Alicia worked long hours, rarely complained, and believed in treating people right, no matter who they were. That belief wasn't something she preached, it was something she lived. But in a town where looks still carried judgment, Alicia had learned to keep her head down. She'd seen what happened when people like her spoke up. The sideways glances. The whispered comments. The quiet reminders that no matter how kind she was still different. That night, rain drizzled across the neon sign outside, blurring the word diner into streaks of red and white. Alicia was closing up, wiping down the counter, thinking about her daughter in college and how proud her husband would have been. Just another slow evening, she thought. Until the sound of screeching tires shattered the calm. A roar of engines followed, several motorcycles, cutting through the night. She looked up just in time to see flashing police lights bounce across the window glass. 2 officers jumped out of their cruiser, shouting. And in front of them, drenched and cornered, stood a man wearing a leather jacket with the faded emblem of the Hells Angels. Alicia froze. Everyone in town knew that patch. It was trouble, danger, everything she tried to keep away from her diner. The man's chest heaved as he backed toward the window, eyes wild. The officers moved in fast, yelling commands, hands on their tasers. It wasn't her fight. She could have turned away, locked the door, and minded her business. But something about the scene, the fear in his eyes, the aggression in theirs, made her stop. She'd seen that look before. Years ago, when her husband was pulled over for fitting the description. That memory hit her harder than she expected. And before she realized it, her hand was already on the door. Because some moments don't wait for courage, they demand it. The moment Alicia pushed open that door, the cold rain hit her face, and so did the tension. 2 officers stood inches from the man, shouting orders. Their hands hovered near their weapons. The man's jacket was torn, his breath ragged. He wasn't fighting back. He was just standing there, exhausted, palms open. Alicia saw it in his eyes, fear, not defiance. One officer shoved him hard against the wall, barking about resisting arrest. The other raised his taser. That's when Alicia stepped forward. "Stop," she shouted, voice trembling but firm. By the next morning, she did. Her diner's windows were smeared with words like traitor and cop hater. Anonymous calls poured in. She turned on the TV. The local news had already picked up the video. Black woman interferes in police arrest. That was the headline. Not saves a man from brutality. Just interferes. By noon, business was gone. The parking lot sat empty. That evening, she sat alone, hands shaking around a cold cup of coffee, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Then came the rumble. A low vibration that grew louder, closer, heavier. Alicia looked up. Headlights filled the horizon. One by one, motorcycles turned into her lot, 10, 20, then 50. Within minutes, there were hundreds. The ground trembled as engines idled in unison. She stepped outside, apron still on, rain beginning again. Dean Walker stood there, bruised, limping, but alive. Behind him, rows of leather jackets gleamed, each marked with the same patch, Hell's Angels. Dean took a step forward. "You stood up when nobody else did," he said quietly. "Now we stand for you." Engines roared, not in anger, but in tribute. By morning, the story exploded. Some called her brave. Others called her reckless. But the loudest voices called for her arrest. The police arrived in force, riot gear, blue lights flooding the street. The sheriff read from a folded paper, "Alicia Carter, you're under investigation for obstruction of justice." The crowd erupted. Officers stepped forward, bikers closed ranks around her. The rain poured harder. Tension snapped. Alicia ran between them, shouting, "Stop, please. This isn't what I wanted." The street froze. "If this story has your heart racing right now," she cried to the camera, "hit subscribe. Because stories like this remind us what courage really looks like." The sheriff turned toward her. "Then what did you want, Alicia?" She met his stare. "I wanted you to see what you're doing. To us. To everyone you think you can break." Silence. Engines cooled. Cameras rolled. The sheriff hesitated, then lowered the paper. "Go home," he muttered, and turned away. In the days that followed, the video went viral. Millions watched as a black woman stood between police and a white biker, and changed the conversation. News anchors called her the diner owner with a conscience. Comment sections called her other names. Some came to thank her. Others came to threaten her. But every morning, Alicia showed up, unlocked the door, and brewed the first pot of coffee. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to stand up anyway. Dean returned a week later with a folded envelope. Inside, a note from the Hells Angels and a check big enough to keep her diner alive. "You didn't just help one of us," it read. "You reminded us we're all human." Her diner became a place for everyone: truckers, nurses, students, bikers. A place where empathy was served with coffee. One evening, Alicia looked out the diner window at sunset. Rows of helmets and jackets hung on the wall, left behind by those who said her place felt like home. She smiled softly. Maybe that was the point, not to fix everything, but to start something. She turned off the lights and whispered, "If I could do it again, I would." Because history doesn't change when the loudest speak. It changes when the quiet refuse to stay silent. And as long as people like Alicia keep standing up, maybe one day, we won't need stories like this to remind us what humanity looks like. So if this story moved you, don't just scroll past, hit like, share, and subscribe. Because voices like Alicia's deserve to be remembered.